seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice his body. Knocked away.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, Celtics blog writer and columnist, and the world's newest Payton Pritchard stan, it's Wayne Spooney. Spooney, how's it going, man?
I am not the newest Payton Pritchard stan. I've been a Payton Pritchard stan for a long time, Ben.
Forgive me.
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
Doing great. It's things are heating up here in Australia as we head into summer, and things are heating up with the Celtics as preseason is well underway. Before we get into that, have you got a column coming out this week, Spooney, for Celtics blog?
I do. I got the my new weekly column, the 3-Leaf Clover, should be dropping tomorrow, talking about Pritchard's playmaking, the triple P, Payton Pritchard playmaking, Svimaholic just knowing how to play offense, and in defense of Derek White not making the top 100, where I put ESPN on a list, and it was a list you do not want to be on.
Do you know who did make the top 100? Tobias Harris.
Grant Williams.
Yeah. These guys, unbelievable, ESPN. Absolutely unforgivable. But we'll get to that maybe a little bit later if we've got time. So you mentioned it, Spooney, Payton Pritchard. Obviously the story of the preseason so far, but we're going to start with someone who might/should be the story of the regular season. And please God, the playoffs and the finals if we're blessed. Kristaps Porzingis. What are your early takes on Porzingis early in the preseason here, Spooney?
So I'm going to start with offense because I had no concerns offensively with Porzingis. And I feel like he's been as advertised offensively. 14, 5 boards, 58, 80% from 3, which is probably unsustainable. But it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be great if he sustained it. But, just like burying deep shots, quick trigger at 7'3". It's absolutely unguardable. 71% from the line, which is a little low. I think that'll go up, but he's getting to the line often. And last year, outside of the Jays, nobody on the Celtics got to the line. I'm pretty sure Horford took like 43 throws last year. So maybe the one downside of his offensive game, 3 turnovers per game in like 20-something minutes, but super small sample size, not real concerned about that. But I think offensively, it's everything we hoped and dreamed. Like, he's flashing that mid-post game. He had that insane, like, fake trip to Philly defender, dunked on him, quick trigger threes. I mean, it's been basically everything. The pick and roll with him and the Jays in that first game just looked like unstoppable, especially with Tatum. Him and Derek White seem to have some chemistry, and our offense seems to really revolve around him in a way I haven't seen since young Horford. Remember when we first got Horford, and it was like Horford pick and roll, Horford handoffs? Like, it was just Horford just had the ball. He averaged 5 assists a game, and that's what it feels like to KP. Like, he's setting the down screen as the primary action. He's running the pick and roll. So offensively, it's been awesome.
Yeah,
My concern. Go ahead.
No,
please.
sorry. Go ahead. I want to hear your concern.
My concern was defensively, and he's erasing a lot of it. We have 100.0 defensive rating in his minutes, which would by far lead the league. Not even close. He's a plus 8.9 net rating, but we saw Tyrese Maxey, like a guy who can pull up against that drop and make shots. Is a little terrifying. So defensively, there's going to be a weakness. We know it. We've talked about it before. But I feel like his rim protection has been completely on point. I feel like he's been doing a great job, mostly, other than maybe that first game on the defensive glass. So I'm extremely happy with Porzingis overall.
Yeah, he seemed a little bit more dedicated on the boards there in this game just gone by, which was great. But you wouldn't say that he's been dominant, but like what stands out to me is how much of a difference maker he clearly is in just two preseason games in super limited minutes in these weird varied lineups where like we didn't have the Jays in the last game, and yet like clearly, like you said, like he's kind of the fulcrum offensively. We saw a couple of plays of just simply dumping the ball down low to him in the post. And, one of those plays, he did turn the ball over, unfortunately. But we're seeing like the ball being dumped down to Porzingis, the defense collapsing towards him, and like unlimited kick out opportunities, which is fantastic. Also, you mentioned it, the pick and roll chemistry with Derek White seems to just be this naturally occurring thing that is required almost no I'm sure they're practicing like crazy in the Auerbach Center there, but that's just a really nice thing to see as well. Getting to the line, it's just amazing. I can't believe how quickly it's come to fruition of just like, yes, he is the difference maker. And unfortunately, the whole thing, as we've said, is going to hinge on health. Which is just going to be a point of stress for us all season. Our guy Nate on Twitter posted this clip of Jrue Holiday and Porzingis running pick and roll, and like as we play it here on the YouTube stream, you just watch as Porzingis rolls here, the entire Philadelphia defense collapses, leaving Al Horford wide open for three. If you think about the personnel on this team, and we're going to get to those guys, particularly the bench personnel and all the 3-point shooting prowess there, like. That is so exciting. And that play is without the Jays on the court. Imagine what that is going to look like with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the court. I've started to tear up here, Spoonie. I'm getting crazy, irrationally excited again.
I think maybe the thing, I mean, I know he's 7'3". I know he's athletic, but Rob Williams goes out the door, and my immediate concern is like, oh my God, we lost the vertical spacer. No, we didn't. We have a 7'3" dude who's athletic. Like that one-handed alley-oop dunk he took down from Derek White in that first game was absolutely absurd. Like he is Rob Williams rolling to the rim. He does not have the passing chops that Rob does, but he can roll to the rim in the same way that Rob does. And he can shoot threes, and he can handle the ball. Like, how do you guard this guy? I know in our Slack, Ben, that you were commenting about how everyone's drooling over Wemby and drooling over Chet. And you were like, we've got that guy in his prime. Like, he was the first unicorn. And, like, dude, his handle is legit for 7'3". Like, it's crazy.
It's so good. We could just do the Porzingis pod, right? We could do an hour on Porzingis and how hyped we are. The last point I'll say is just it's so nice to have another guy with this much gravity, Jay's level gravity on the court. And that's really like the biggest contributing point to everything we're talking about, and why we can't wait to see a lot of sample size of Porzingis on the court with both Jays is because that much gravity among that distribution of individuals on the court at once is the recipe for a spicy offense. And we've seen that really like top to tail as far as the lineup is concerned. The ball movement's looking really impressive so far, but we saw that with early Missoula ball last year, so we don't want to overreact to that, even though I already have in our Slack, as you've pointed out there, Spoonie. We want to get to the wings and really just the bench depth as a whole, because we were fortunate enough, like if you're a Celtics nerd, that second game against the Knicks where everyone was rested, that's a game you can really sink your teeth into as a Celtics nerd, where all these guys that we've signed, and we're looking for love, we're looking to fall for some of these guys and become invested from a fandom perspective in some of these players. We got to see a good chunk of them, and some are great, some were not so great. Some, in Delano Banton's case, were great one game and terrible the next. Yeah. So, Spoonie, you had this great idea to rank the wing depth on our bench on this podcast. So I want to throw up to you here to kick this one off.
Okay, so I think there's two types of rankings we could do, right? Like, who's played the best in preseason, or who do we think is, like, ranking, like, the rotation, right? And I think those rankings will come out slightly different at the top, but otherwise would be the same. So I think we should rank, like, who do we think Missoula trusts the most right now?
I agree.
Okay. All right. So I would have number one, Sam Hauser. I think he showed, like, he couldn't make a shot those first two games, and then last night he was much better. Defensively, he still looks fine, and I felt like he's dedicating himself to the defensive glass. So I have absolutely no concerns about Hauser, and Hauser's one of those guys, like, he's going to look bad playing it in that, like, pickup game style that in that Knicks game where it's just like he's not that type of player, right? He's born to play off high gravity wings, a high gravity big like Porzingis. Like that is what he excels at when other people take all the defensive presence and then he's just wide open and can make shots. So I would have Hauser number 1. I think there's one guy that you could argue is in contention for that. But Ben, do you agree Hauser 1 if we're Joe Mazzulla?
Hauser 1 if we're Joe Mazzulla. If we're us also, by the sound of it.
Yeah.
I would say, like, and this is where I'm going to need you to, like, kick me if I'm overreacting, and I may very well be. Folks in the chat, feel free to do the same. Kind of looked starting caliber last night. Low level starting caliber, but he looked so comfortable out there. And he was very fluid in all the schemes, offensively and defensively. The shot was back 4 of 9 from 3. That shot, I think, is gonna find its level as the season progresses, and just perfectly adequate defensively, which is like, he's not amazing, but he's just fine. He's at a level, a 0 level. He's not particularly positive, not particularly negative. He's just fine. And a guy on that salary at that point in the rotation, that's the most that you can ask from him. So I think he's delivering on all levels in that sense.
Yeah, and he had a nice drive of a closeout to kick to Porzingis. Porzingis was like 30 feet from the hoop and still buried the 3. So, like, I don't know how useful that play is on a different team, but it's very useful on the Celtics.
Dude, baseline drive, kick out, it was awesome.
Yeah. No, it was great, and that's not something he really did at all last year. So I think he's confident in that he has a big role on this team. He knows it. He's going to keep firing. He's going to keep playing his game. So I think he's my 1 if I'm Joe Mazzulla. If I'm ranking who's playing great right now, or if I'm Joe Mazzulla, I think there's a clear number 2. I think it's Svi Mykhailiuk. Svi has really, really impressed me. He's bounced around. I think he's been in the league for 6 years, and he's been on 7 teams. But last year in 20 games with Charlotte, he averaged like 14, 5, and 5 or something crazy like that. And that dude has carried it into preseason. I mean, he knows how to play offense. I mean, he just understands off-ball movement. He's got a decent handle, and the shot's falling. I think my biggest concern with Svi offensively is if the shot stops falling, because it really hasn't gone down in his NBA career. Defensively, he's not great, but if he was great defensively, he would be like a max type player. So I don't know. Svi number 2, Ben, you with that?
I had Svi like down my list. I had 2 other guys ahead of Svi because I just think like Hauser gives you everything that Svi does as well as better defense. Whereas, because of his negative wingspan in Svi's case, talking dimensions here, he gets bumped down my list a little bit because we do need guys who can hold their own defensively. Okay. And the thing with like the wings that we're evaluating now is that they've all been thrown out there together, right? Because we're resting most of our starters, and we're not necessarily having much of an opportunity to look at them within the context of how they fit in with our starters. And, in the case of Hauser, for example, like he can, like I said, hold his own somewhat defensively and therefore not be like a point of vulnerability and exploit defensively for an opposition if he's out there with the Jays. Svi is exploitable defensively, which is why I was looking at guys like Lamar Stevens and even, dare I say it, Delano Banton ahead of Svi, because at least they can hold themselves defensively because they're going to defer to the Jays and Porzingis offensively anyway. Does that make any sense?
So... yeah, no, absolutely it does, right? You're looking for a mix of skills off your bench. I think, we talk about it before, is like you don't want guys who are a C- at everything on your bench because they're not good at anything. You want guys who fit into a specific role. You want guys who fit into a specific scenario. And I think you can make the argument if Hauser's just kind of a better version of Svi. I think Svi does different stuff offensively, but if he's playing with the Jays, he's not going to have the ball in his hands like he has these last 2 preseason games, right? So I think that's a great argument. I think you convinced me, but who would you have it to? Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think if I'm Joe Mazzulla, I think Svi's below at least one of the other wings in that case. But who would you have it to?
Well, before I give you that, I think my main counterpoint to myself on Svi is that if you are an elite kick-out option, which Svi so far has been this preseason. Like, that's probably the most value that you could add to the Jays.
Yep.
So that's where I would sort of throw him up my list a little bit. But then again, Hauser's giving us that. So I think there's some redundancy there in Svi's case. I actually had, and this stock has taken a dip in the last couple of days, Lamar Stevens. The three-point shot, it's not there. He can get to the paint. He's demonstrated that little free throw line pull-up J. Defensively, particularly one-on-one, pretty solid. Team defense, and this is the same for O'Shea Brissett as well. Very confused so far when it comes to switches and sort of schematic defensive actions. But, he's a good, solid, physical body out there, great dimensions. And I think, we talked about that redundancy between Hauser and Svi. So I've got to throw Lamar Stevens up there just because of the defensive versatility that he brings to the team. I'm willing to have this argument shut down.
I absolutely love how in on Lamar Stevens you are, Ben.
I'm starting to regret it a little bit.
I said it when we were on the playback. I was like, I love this take for you. So I would take a little bit of issue with Brissett being confused on defense. I think he was definitely that first Sixers game. I think he's started to figure it out defensively, started to find the scheme. Even last game, he was pointing to Pritchard at times, being like, get down there, get to the switch, get to the corner shooter. That's your responsibility, not mine. So I think Brissett seems like a quick learner defensively. I think him and Stevens, you can make an argument for either of them.
Agreed.
If you're going to put them above Svi. I would probably lean Brissett personally, just because like he has some history of making threes, but if Lamar's shot starts going down, it doesn't even have to go down a lot, just like 34% from three. He's a better player than Brissett in that case. Like his handle is like sneaky good, man. Like he's throwing behind the backs, he's getting into the paint, he's dropping like these little followays in the lane. I'm like, who is this man? Jaylen Brown? I was shocked at like Lamar Stevens' ability to handle the ball. I think Brissett reads the game really well though. Like he knows when to drive, he knows when to cut, and I think he's figuring out the defense quicker than Stevens. But I think they're mostly interchangeable at this point. Brissett's taller, Stevens like 30 pounds or 20 pounds heavier. And you saw Joe trusted him to play center in that first game, which actually worked really well. And they both get their nose in on defense. They both want to rebound. They both play really hard. So they're super similar players. Stevens' skill level maybe a little higher. Brissett's reading of the game maybe a little higher. So it's just kind of whatever you need in that particular scenario on the court, I think.
¿Por qué no los dos? Why not both?
Why not? Yeah, exactly.
We have roster
we
room.
can keep them both. Yeah, we got plenty of room.
Both very versatile. Apologies for the Australian accented Spanish there. I don't even know if that was accurate. I got it from a burrito ad from 10 years ago.
You did nail it. You nailed it, yeah.
Thank you. Maybe something that does tip it in the favor of O'Shea Brissett. He's got the YouTube channel, as Spoonie's cat makes an appearance for everyone's bingo card there. He's got the YouTube channel, and I've seen and looked on with a lot of envy for other teams with players sort of midway around the rotation who have these great, really well-produced like vlogging platforms on YouTube. And it just gives you this insight into the team that you don't get. Obviously, we're talking way off the court at this point. But the fact that O'Shea brings that to the table from a fandom perspective, suddenly we've got this new insight into the team that we never had. And for him to stick on the roster and continue to put out those productions all year and hopefully into a deep playoff run and a championship, dare I say it, that's a great addition to the team. So maybe if you forced my hand, as much as I've been high on being an advocate for Lamar Stevens, maybe we've got to go O'Shea in this case. Who did you have next?
I think it's got to be Banton after those guys. And in fact, I think you could make an argument for Banton over a few of these dudes just because he's so different. I think it depends what you're looking for. His pop off the dribble, he's got a little more. His first steps quicker than I thought in the half court, and like having a dude with an elite level handle at 6'7" is just a bizarre skill. that I think teams aren't really prepared for when you go to the bench, and just being tall defensively helps. Like if you can run him at point guard and have a 6'7" point guard, and then that can help Pritchard too, who's kind of more of a shooting guard in some ways. So he can play next to Pritchard and kind of handle the primary ball handling duties, and then guard up to the shooting guard while Pritchard takes the point guard. So he's a nice fit with him off the bench. But personally, I would have Banton as a pretty clear fifth, just because we need shooting off the bench, and he just cannot shoot the ball. But I don't know. He's had a weird preseason. He seems like he might be incredibly inconsistent, which might just be a thing for his career. But hey, coming from Summer League, I expected this dude to get cut, and he might make his way into a roster spot.
He may well make his way into a roster spot, and I had him getting cut as well, or most likely to be cut. But if he is wildly inconsistent, that's like the biggest detractor. He's so good at his best, and he's so bad at his worst. Like worse than the next worst player on the team by far, which is what got him pulled out of the game last night by Missoula. But, he brings that defensive versatility. You mentioned the first step. He gets to the rim, and part of that is just like getting positionally where, the average player is capable of getting. But then the reach that he has for his position, his wingspan, allows him to just get better looks under the hoop from, layups. And we haven't seen many dunks from him so far, but he's better at, using his dimensions, I might say, to get uncontested looks under the rim. He's only 23, so you could make an argument that the issues of inconsistency could still be addressed as he matures as a player, a la Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. And if he were any more consistent than he currently is, then we wouldn't be able to afford him. So that's kind of what you get at this price point. So I'm very high on Banton at this point, and high on his potential. But then again, we're gunning for a championship this year, Spoonie. Like, do we want to gamble on a guy like Delano Banton getting as good as we need them to get throughout the course of the season? I'm not sure. I don't know. I will say that my rankings have changed multiple times in my mind compared to what I've got on page here throughout the course of this conversation. So I'm all over the place right now.
Yeah, I think you're right that Banton clearly has the highest ceiling of any of these guys. Like, dude, if he just starts to shoot the ball decently, he's going to be insane. Like, he will be a really, really good player. If he can be kind of like an actual off-ball three, and like his ability to drive in his first step, attacking closeouts, will make Stevens and Brissett look like me and you out there. You know what I mean? Like, he's just so much more explosive than those guys. I think they're both better defensively, but again, like, he's a big wing that doesn't get blown by every single possession. So it's not like he's a bad defensive player or anything like that. So, Banton's just he's a very unique player in a lot of ways. You just don't see a lot of guys like him out there. Like, could he be Sean Livingston? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
That's what makes him so intriguing.
Right.
So we've kind of touched on all of the names here, and it's been a bit of a shuffle as far as the rankings. So I guess just trying to aggregate everything, the first couple of names mentioned were Hauser and Svi. So that clearly shooting with like even just a lick of defense, that clearly seems to be between you and I the priority off the bench. So Hauser and Svi. And then it's kind of Lamar Stevens, Delano Banton, O'Shea Brissett in terms of the hustle plays, the defensive versatility. In Delano's case, the ability to get to the rim for someone of at his position. That only leaves one more name, Spoonie. Walshy.
Jordan Walsh. Yeah. I think, like, look, clearly Joe doesn't trust him, which is fine. Is he even 20 yet? I'm not even sure he's 20 yet. I will say, when he's played, the flashes are there. Like, that strip and layup he had, I think it was against Julius Randle, too, was absolutely gorgeous. I can hear your mouse clicking, so I'm assuming you're about to run it, Ben. So
No, I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it? Okay. So I think the flashes are there. They put him on Deuce McBride because I think he doesn't understand the defense yet. So they were like, just crowd the ball handler. He got burnt a couple times. Deuce McBride, Pride of West Virginia. So shout out WVU, Deuce. But he also was all over Deuce on a couple possessions as well. I thought he did a really good job, but I just think offensively he traveled a couple times, although at least one of them was not a travel. So he's just raw, super, super raw. I would be shocked if he's a contributor this season, but I think he's shown enough to make me very encouraged about his career going forward.
Yeah, that's my landing point as well. Encouraged about what's to come, but he's a green banana, well away from being ripened and ready for eating and devouring at this point. Apologies for that analogy. Yeah, he's had some great moments of individual defense. I love that he is almost incapable of being beaten off the dribble. Like he's great at recovering if he does lose his man momentarily. But, you know, I usually do a pretty decent job of like block reading the screen and interpreting what kind of defense we're playing, whether it's a zone and then what type of zone or man-to-man. Mm-hmm. And with Walshy out there, he's so all over the place that I lose that ability. He's so out of position. Yeah. He's got no idea what's going on that it's impossible to sort of understand team-wise, you know, what we're doing defensively. So he's got a long way to go, but he does have those instincts. So he will pick that up.
100%.
And then at the rim as well, he's got some nice touch, which I think you mentioned. So, you know, the potential's there. We still love Walshy. There's no love lost for our mate Jordan Walsh. He's just got such a long way to go and just a bevy of talent ahead of him as far as like cracking the rotation. So it's going to be a fun year for Walshy in Maine. Should we get to our guy, Payton Pritchard?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's swing to PP here.
Coming up next. One on the clock for Pritchard. Got it! Splashdown! It's Payton's place here in Atlanta. Getting more burn in the absence of Marcus Smart. Got to a nice spot.
If you are listening, you need to go on YouTube and watch 27 minutes in, because that was an incredible Payton Pritchard intro.
It's my best work to date, I think.
Oh my God, did I lose Ben?
Am I not here?
Or did I get kicked?
I'm here. Can you not hear me?
Oh.
Uh-oh. We're in trouble. People in the chat, let us know. Who's coming
now.
Through.
All right, we're good.
All right. Thanks for the big ups on the Payton Pritchard video. My best work to date.
That was beautiful. 27 minutes. We've got the timestamp too to cut that out.
Yeah, thank you for that. We'll definitely cut that out for the audio pod listeners. And if you're listening to this now, then we didn't. But anyway, look, what I said about our wing reserves is that they're not all just going to be out there together, and this is what makes Payton Pritchard's performance so far in the preseason so special. Is like he is out there with all the reserves. He is seeing he is the focal point of opposition defense, and yet he's still putting up the insane numbers and productivity that he has been so far this preseason. So for what it's worth, he's a negative 0.5 net rating, but he's out there winning games for the Celtics, which has been great. So Spoonie, you have a face like maybe I'm dropping out of the stream again. I'm not sure, but what have been your thoughts so far on Payton Pritchard this preseason? Uh-oh. Folks in the chat, can you let us know who we're losing? Is it me or is it Spoonie? Spoonie, I see you. All right. Folks in the chat are telling me that it's me and that it's not Spoonie. Yes. Spoonie looks like he's being held hostage. Blink twice if you need help. Spoonie's going to leave. He's going to come back. All right. Have we got you? Have we got you?
Yeah, we're good.
All
we're
right.
good. I don't know what
funny.
happened, but all I heard in my headphones was,
Oh, no.
We're good.
Yeah, what's funny is that you had no latency at all, so you looked like you had someone like standing behind your camera with like holding a gun to you or something.
Oh my God, that's terrible. All right, awesome.
So I was setting it up by saying that, we're talking about our wings earlier and how the sample size we've had of those wings is that like they've all been out there together, and we haven't had a lot of sample size of them playing with the Jays. Pritchard's been out there. He's been fairly dominant, and like he's been playing with all reserves as well. Like it's not like he's been able to benefit from the Jays' gravity pulling defenses away from him, and yet he's been like largely dominant, particularly offensively. He's been incredible. So what's been your take on Payton Pritchard so far this preseason?
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 21.3 and 4 assists. So he's shooting 42% from 3 on 10.3 a game, which is absolutely absurd. But I think the most impressed I've been with Pritchard this year is that his assist percentage last year was 15.3%. He's at 29.3 in the preseason. So it's just absolutely kind of a different player if you're up that high in assist percentage. Like if you're shooting at an elite level and you're playmaking at that high of a level, I mean, you're just a different guy. So I don't know what to expect from Pritchard in the regular season, but I'm really comfortable with him essentially being the 6th, 7th man at this point. Like he's been that good, man, like super impressive. And you're right. Like often he's by far the best offensive player on the court for the Celtics, and it hasn't stopped him at all. So, I mean, the deep shots aren't always going to go, but it seems like he's more confident getting into the lane, getting into the paint, kicking out, hitting floaters. He had that like a couple little like mid-range jumpers that just look so pure and smooth. So, some lob passes. We're seeing him lob to Kaita here. So, like, I'm not sure he could have played better in this preseason. Like, he's been incredible, dude. He might have been our best player.
Yeah. Has there been any greater source of joy in your like basketball world than Payton Pritchard? Like in the last week or so, he's been fucking incredible.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, man. Like as hyped as I am for Porzingis and Jrue Holiday, like the story is Payton Pritchard right now, I think. Like he's been that good, man. And like some of the shots he's hitting are just bananas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those pull-up middies in the paint, like deeper than the like closer to the hoop than the free throw line, but it's like it adds a new dimension to his game where he's not just like layups and threes now. He has this ability to like get the defense backpedaling and pull up. And we don't know the percentages. NBA probably rightfully so from their perspective don't offer tracking data from the preseason, but he's pretty money from that position, suffice to say. So it's been a lot of fun, and just coming off the back of the contract extension and all the, I wouldn't even say drama from last year because he handled it quite well. Well, he made his thoughts and feelings known while not creating a rift among the team, which is a great and a real good sign of character from his perspective. But to see it come to fruition now where he's like a legitimate part of the rotation, definitely like solidified as the 7th man on the team. And, we talked about that star depth as far as like we've got like 4 true stars on the team now, like and Derek White and Al Horford, to the point where if 1 or 2 of those have to miss games, we've got enough star power to continue to win, hopefully, without them. Payton Pritchard just adds a new dimension to that. Like clearly we've got more reliable offensive productivity. What do you think about it just being the preseason? Like, do you think this is going to continue into the regular season, or do you think we're maybe overhyping things so far?
Look, I mean, I don't think his numbers are going to, like, his raw stats aren't going to be as high just because he's not going to play as many minutes. But, like, this dude shot 40% for his entire NBA career before last year, and largely his minutes last year were in garbage time. He played, like, 400 or 500 fewer minutes last season. And clearly Brad Stevens believes in him because he would have traded for a guard if he didn't. I'm not sure he's going to shoot 42% on the types of threes he's shooting, but he won't need to take these types of threes when he's playing with the actual rotation. And I'm just super encouraged by how confident he looks getting to the rim and attacking. And you're right, like that little midi Like, you need that as a small guard because you can't finish over people like Jrue Holiday does, right? Like, Jrue just goes all the way to the rim and he's finishing over these monsters, but he's 6'5", right? Pritchard's 6'1", 6 foot. Like, he can't do that. So if he's got that little 8-footer, like, it's the same results, 2 points. It's just a different way of going about it. And I feel like defensively, Pritchard's always going to stick his nose in. He's always going to try, and he boxes out. And I think that's super important for this team that I think we all agree, like, rebounding might be an issue. So, I mean, I'm pumped, dude. I'm hyped for him.
Yeah, especially regular season. Defensively in the playoffs, like, he's going to get played off the court. He just will. But, regular season, he comes in with that energy. He's picking up guys full court. He's a spacer for the Jays and for Porzingis as well. Like, he's going to be critical throughout the regular season. And I think he's going to have some nice glaring playoff moments as well, if all goes well. So very excited. You mentioned, as almost part of a perfect segue there, Spoonie, Jrue Holiday, another point guard who plays for the Boston Celtics, recently acquired. He's played 2 games now, one off the bench, one in the starting lineup. Hasn't exactly dominated, but I think with Jrue, like, it sort of comes down perception-wise of like how he's performed so far, of what your expectations have been of him early on. So what are your takes on Jrue Holiday's early performances as a Celtic?
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's just trying to fit in. You know what I mean? Like, he's not trying to dominate the ball. Like, he's going from essentially being the second option in Milwaukee for the last 2 years because Middleton hasn't really played. And now he's the 4th, 5th option at times. So has not blown me away, but he's had those moments. He had a couple drives last night where it was just like classic Jrue Holiday, where it looks like he's going in slow motion, and then all of a sudden he's past somebody and laying in with his left hand. Shooting 43% from 3, which is like what I think is probably one of the most important stats for him, considering who he's going to be playing with. Hasn't attempted a free throw. Look out for that. Drew's big weakness offensively is he does not get to the line, which is, kind of unfortunate, but he goes around people with Euro steps and just uses his strength. So he's just not a big free throw guy. But otherwise, like, I just think he's 33, right? He's not going to be going balls to the wall in the preseason. And it looks like he's not been going balls to the wall. And he's still learning everything, man. He just got to Boston like 5 days ago or 6 days ago. So, I haven't been blown away, but I also haven't been like, oh boy. Like when Lowry got to Miami and everyone's like, uh-oh, this guy's done. Like, that's not been my response either. Yeah.
No.
You're muted, buddy.
Sorry, I had a hardware issue. Another timestamp to edit. Thanks to everyone on the live stream for sticking with us as we continue to document timestamps to edit out for the audio podcast. Do you give him a pass? Just in general, like, given everything you said, given he's barely been in Boston for that long, and yet, he was quite productive in limited minutes in this game last night against the Sixers. He does seem to be kind of like Porzingis as well, like ramping up productivity-wise and fit-wise as we sort of gradually integrate him into the team. But the way that I look at Holiday so far is like I just give him a pass for everything because it's just going to take time.
Yeah, I think so. And I just think, like, if this were the playoffs, like, he would be going all out and he would be a complete game changer for us. And that's just not going to happen in preseason. So I'm totally fine with Jrue. I've got absolutely no concerns. I think we're good. Like I said, athletically, he looks the same. Defensively, he's going to be everywhere. And he's just got to learn what he needs to do, what he needs to give this team when he's, the 4th, 5th option.
Agreed. I look forward to just the day where he's fully integrated and like the Brad Stevens image is fully actualized and realized. Yeah. Do you have like a point in the regular season that you sort of predict that to happen by? Is it sort of 10 games, 20 games? How long are we going to have to wait, I guess?
I almost said, I literally was thinking Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
It feels like, not that he'll be bad before then, but it just feels like by Christmas, you've really kind of got your team together and you understand schemes on both sides and the chemistry's had time to, it takes a while to learn how to play with somebody, man. It really does. So, like, you think about it, when we had that huge turnaround under Udoka, it came like January 6th or so was that last loss against the Knicks when Barrett banked in that 3, and then they took off. So I think, yeah, probably Christmas before it's 100% incredible. Like, we're spoiled by that Kyrie S my D era when they went like 17-2 or whatever it was. But I think it'll take a little bit. I mean, we're going to be really good before that. But I think truly to be like, wow, Jrue is like really integrated in this team and understands both sides of the ball. It's going to be December, I would bet. Where are you feeling? You thinking like November 10th?
I hope it's like game one against the Knicks. But I think you're right. I think Christmas is sort of like a modest and generous period of ramping up for Jrue Holiday. The difference between now and 2 years ago, I think, is the team is just so talented. They just got so many individually high talented players and guys like Tatum and Brown who have been with the team and played under Mazzulla for long enough that we might still win a shitload of games regardless of the ramp up for Jrue Holiday. So we might get the best of both worlds in that sense. Shifting to another point guard, this time for the opposing team, the Sixers. I hate the Sixers. Should we be terrified of Tyrese Maxey? Because he has been ridiculously productive against our new look team so far in the preseason. Is that something that we should be concerned about going forward?
So I think the one thing about the Sixers that I've not heard, like, we've all been preying on their downfall. We've all been digging the grave, burying them with this Harden stuff. But, like, there is a chance that Maxey just turns into a next level of player, right? And, oh boy, kind of looked like it might be happening. And that would be absolutely fucking terrifying, dude. That would be not good, right? Like, are you scared of him? Because I'm worried. I mean, I'm not worried about, like, playing them in the playoffs, but, like, if he keeps playing like that, I might be.
I'm scared of him individually. I just can't be scared of the Sixers as a whole. There's just too much going on wrong under the hood there for the 76ers. And with the Harden situation and Embiid cresting over age 30, which for a person of his size is a significant age milestone to reach. As a whole, I'm not concerned about the Sixers. And so I kind of look at it as like, and this is probably a sign of how like pathetic the Sixers are in my mind. I look at it as like, good for you, a nice little win here. Like, oh, you got something out of the process, but like all in all, overall, like it's not going to be enough to get over the Celtics, let alone the Bucks, maybe the Heat, the Cavs, etc. So what's more concerning to me is the player archetype of Tyrese Maxey. And you look at the Donovan Mitchells of the world, the Damian Lillards. It's that player archetype that we're going to have to be concerned about. Like point guards or crafty two guards who are really crafty with getting around screens and finding space, particularly when your bigs are playing in drop, which is what Al and Porzingis are going to be doing all season long, all playoffs long. Us giving up those looks to guards of that caliber, and there's so many of them around the league because we sort of had a point guard renaissance in the last 5 to 10 years or so. That's really concerning to me. But then the one thing that negates that, Derek White, Jrue Holiday, incredible screen navigators. Maybe that negates the vulnerabilities that we give up with our drop defense and our less than speedy, less than fast-footed bigs there. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think, we're just going to know going into the season that's the type of player we've got to be worried about. Unfortunately, there's some teams in the East that have those guys, but ultimately, like, it takes a lot for one of those dudes to win a game by themselves.
Yeah.
They really have to make a ton of jumpers, and that's really hard to do off the dribble for 4 games in the playoffs. So, yeah, maybe we might lose a couple games, but I think on balance, what we're betting on is that like White and Holiday are going to get over enough screens. We're going to be able to mix up the coverages enough, and they're just going to miss sometimes. So yeah, a little scary. I mean, Dame Lillard in Milwaukee, don't love it, but yeah, that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. I'm sure for all the don't love it points that we can make about Tyrese Maxey and Dame in Milwaukee, they're probably thinking the same thing about Porzingis and Jrue Holiday in Boston as well. So it goes
100%.
Both ways, and potentially in our favor, albeit we are very biased Celtics fans. Moving along, are you worried about Luke Cornett? Because I am concerned at this point because he has been bad, in a word. Very, very, very bad.
I feel like I've been on this take for a while. I'm not a Luke guy. I never really have been a Luke guy. Like, he's fine, I guess. I mean, I worry that, like, we kind of threw the change up at teams last year, and it was like, oh, Luke Cornett's playing? Oh, we have zero tape on this guy because why would we bother? And he was, like, good enough. So, yeah, I guess I'm extremely worried about not having a third big that I'm confident in. But how many teams have that, I guess, is the other side of the coin.
Yeah, I mean, how much is he really a third big, though, if we're potentially going double big? You know, if we're potentially playing so much Al and so much Porzingis, even if we don't go double big, that we like have a legitimate reliance on a third big, say 15 to 18 minutes per night. That's terrifying when you attribute that to Luke Cornett. Like, so I am a little concerned. Neemias Queta, I don't know, like, it's preseason. He has a lot of faults. Are you beginning in your mind at least to favor him over Luke Cornett?
No. I think okay. I just like, I am, for some reason, I've had like an interest in Keita since the draft. I caught, some of his Kings games. I caught, I like looked into him during the draft because I can't even remember. I think it was 3 years ago. We had a pick and he was projected in a mock for us. So I looked into him. Like, he's kind of like Luke in a lot of ways, where he's just big. And that's like the best thing about him is he's really, really big. I do think he's probably a better defensive rebounder than Luke, but Luke's gonna be a lot better, like understanding the game, being that handoff guy, stuff like that. So I think Keita is somehow even slower footed than Cornett, but he's kind of changing my mind. He's looked springy in the preseason so far, I guess. So I don't know, man. I just feels like we need a trade is where I'm really coming down with it, because I just can't trust Luke Cornett.
Yeah, feels like a deadline deal at this point. I think as far as Cornett's concerned, we're going to give him a lot more rope, at least going into the early stages of the regular season. And we've got more picks, we've got that trade player exception, we've got maneuverability, and that seems to be the most fillable and urgent position of need for the Celtics. So we'll see. We're going to wrap up on this. Is Jaylen Brown underrated at this point? And is it time to reset the conversation around Jaylen Brown? And Spoonie, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have written or are in the process of writing something about this?
Yeah, so I'm writing a deep dive. If you ever watched the Spoonie Celtics show,
Great show.
Years ago, it's a underground classic, a cult classic. I did a deep dive comparing Jason Tatum to elite wings, and it's a really deep statistical argument. So I'm doing that with Jaylen Brown right now, with Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine, and Anthony Edwards, because they have similar assist percentages and similar usage percentages. So, but I added this to the run sheet because back in the day, let me take you back to the late 90s, early 2000s.
Please.
Allen Iverson was like the most celebrated player in the league, and he shot like 40% from the floor, like and under 40% multiple years. And we celebrated him because he scored a lot. And then the advanced stat revolution, we understand efficiency, three-point shooting, and we've gone, like, the pendulum has swung all the way to the other side. But I think we've kind of lost the plot a little bit. Is like, if you are good enough to score one-on-one against people often and efficiently, like Jaylen can, even if you're not great at anything else, you're super good at basketball. Like, you're one of the best players in the league. And Jaylen Brown is one of the best players in the league. I've seen people be like, he's our fifth best player. He's our fourth best player. No, he is not. Maybe Porzingis could maybe make an argument. But would we trade Jaylen Brown for Jrue Holiday straight up? Absolutely not. There's no chance in hell. Like, he's always balled out in the playoffs. Like that Heat Game 7, that Heat series was rough for him. But other than that, he's always been good in the playoffs. He was great in the final. Well, good in the finals. Like Jaylen Brown is somehow has the richest contract in the NBA and is underrated at this point. Like the conversation has gone so far that we need to come out the other side and start celebrating dudes who can just cross someone up, get to the rim, and score 2 points in a dead possession. Like that is so valuable when there's 9 seconds left on the shot clock. Nothing's happening. You toss it to this dude, and he shoots mid-range jumpers at 50%. Like that matters, man. And Jaylen is awesome, and he's amazing, and I can't wait for him to ball out this year.
Yeah, man. And people forget, like, the last 2 seasons, and I'm only using the last 2 seasons as an example because that's as far back as my small brain can think, is he had long stretches of carrying this Celtics team. Mm-hmm. Long stretches where Tatum either wasn't playing or more likely he just wasn't shooting well, wasn't performing well, because he has had periods that we like to forget of inconsistency, particularly shooting from deep. Jaylen Brown has been carrying this team for long stretches of multiple regular seasons. He is, for the most part, a solid, reliable, and an all-NBA player and multi-time all-star. Somehow, we live in this world where we're so lucky that a player with that resume is our second best player. But yeah, he has his flaws. Everyone has their flaws. Tatum has his flaws. But he is an incredible player. He has become undervalued, and victim is the wrong word, but the focal point of negativity, we might say, among Celtics fans, and worse so, like NBA Reddit fans and just NBA Twitter generalists who don't really know ball, who don't really watch Celtics games, but are happy to like pinpoint a few clips of turnovers in Jaylen Brown's case and attribute these really negative aspects to him. But he has far more positives than he does negatives in his game, and is going to be crucial to whatever this run ends up being, championship or bust. So, yeah, it is time to reset the conversation, Spoonie. I guess the most important question is, like, beyond what you and I have just said, like, how do we kick that off? How do we spur a change in direction for Jaylen Brown?
I don't know, because the stats tell me Donovan Mitchell's better than him. So it's the piece I'm writing is probably, it might not do it. He's certainly better than Anthony Edwards and Zach LaVine. I think there's probably people who would make the argument Anthony Edwards is better than him. But here, let me just give you some of his stats.
Please.
In that finals run. 23.5 points plus 9.8 net rating in the playoffs, in the finals run playoffs. 57.4 true shooting percentage. So, like, league average is right around 57% in the regular season. Defenses get better. Efficiency drops in the playoffs. So, above average efficiency, 23.5 points per game. And we were plus 10 per 100 with him on the court in the playoffs. Like, that is not the trappings of a dude who is overrated and the 40th best player in the league. That is a dude who's sniffing top 20, right? And that's what Jaylen is. He will probably never be more than that, but that's okay, because we got a dude who's top 10. You know what I mean? Like, he's a perfect second banana. He's awesome. And the way he's been talking about playing defense this year has got me really, really excited, because I think that's where he needs to turn it around. We talk about, stop the turnovers, play make more. He's just not going to be that guy, but he can concentrate on defense and become sort of that Klay Thompson type, where he's a lockdown defender and a great individual scorer. And then all of a sudden, like, this dude is going to be incredible. Like, he's going to be a net rating monster, which he's never been in his entire career. So cannot wait.
Totally. And it's weird how people get caught up on the contract situation, but they do so relative to the NBA financial landscape of the last 5 years. What you need to do is look at it relative to what the NBA contract financial landscape will be in the ensuing 5 years, the duration of the contract. And it's only going to be a small matter of time until, compared to other players of his caliber, like Jaylen Brown's contract is going to look completely standard, a cookie-cutter NBA contract. So keep that in mind next time you're using his contract as an argument against Jaylen Brown. All right. Good times. We kept it under an hour, Spoonie. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, first of all, if you're watching on any of the CLNS channels, head over to the First of the Floor YouTube channel, subscribe. the more subscribers we have on the channel, the more clout we have when reaching out to potential guests. So any subscribers and reviewers and commenters really help with that side of the game for us. It's a pretty competitive landscape there in the Celtics podcasting game. Also, this is your last chance to enter our 5-star Walshy campaign. To enter, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and let us know how to contact you. Extra points for humor there, and we'll do the draw a week or so from now, and the winner will get their very own Walshy jersey in the mail. Spoonie, love your work, mate. We'll be back early next week. Until then, go Celtics.
I love